Happy Thanksgiving, everybody. I know this is actually a day early, but that's because, we will probably be doing Thanksgiving-y things tomorrow, and I figured it'd be easier to do it today. And since we're not meeting tonight like we normally are, this is kind of our youth meeting-ish kind of thing. Woo! Anyway, when I was in college, I did it. It was kind of like a mission trip kind of thing, sort of, but it was there in Bolivar, and it was called the Polk County Mission. And what we did was this after-school program on Wednesdays, and we tell Bible stories, we play games, have snacks, and tell a missionary story, kind of stuff like that. Well, we were going over and practicing our lesson, and I was giving the lesson that week, and our leaders had kind of challenged us, hey, let's actually take what we learn when we practice these lessons and apply them to our own lives. They're kids' lessons, but hey, there can be some stuff to be learned from it. So on Monday, we would meet and we'd practice Good News Club. And then on Wednesdays, we would actually have Good News Club with all the little kids. Well, we practiced on Monday, and I had a big giant paper due at the end of the day on Tuesday. And so I, being my super studious self, went to bed Monday night without working on it at all, slept like a baby. It was wonderful and glorious. And I woke up the next morning and I was late to class. And I was like, oh no, I can't believe I'm running late to class. My plan actually was, again, being the very responsible and studious student that I was to work on my paper while I was sitting in class, so I got credit for being in class, but then I also would be able to work on my paper. Don't do what I did. Don't follow my example. It's a horrible way to do life, and it's a horrible way to do school. So don't do that. Don't do it. But for me, that's what I did. And so I'm running late to class. I hop in my car, and at this point, I lived on the other side of town. I fly back over to the other side of town. And I get halfway to class, and all of a sudden I realize I left all of my notes and all the stuff I needed for my paper. And I was like, oh, no. So I'm rushing back across town. I grab all my stuff. And at this point, it's been probably another 5-10 minutes. And I grab my stuff, and I get back in the car, and I'm speeding through town as, responsible as I could. Because honestly, you don't speed in town. That's just dumb. That's where cops are. So I'm rushing within the speed limit is really what I was doing. So not really anything faster than what you normally would do. But anyway, and I'm panicky, oh my gosh, let's go. And all of a sudden I remembered what our lesson was about. And our lesson was about Philippians 4:4, where it says this: Rejoice in the Lord always. I will say it again, rejoice. And the part of the lesson is that, I don't know if you guys know the song. There's a song that literally is rejoice in the Lord always, and again I say rejoice. And it just repeats over and over and over. And rejoice, rejoice, and again I say rejoice. It's literally that. Kind of annoying, but a really, really nice song. And so that was the challenge for the little kids, was when you get in a situation where you're stressed out, or you're frustrated, or you're angry, or you're mad, or you're sad, or anything, just remember that song and remind yourself of something. Pray to God and remind yourself to rejoice in God, just as Paul told us to do. And said, maybe you even sing that song. And so here I am, I'm running late to class, and I'm just like, okay, fine, I'll do it. And so I'm sitting in my car, I turn the music off, and I'm like, rejoice in the Lord always, and again I say rejoice. And I just keep going through it. And it was really just kind of so humorous more than anything else that I calmed down. It made me kind of laugh. I got to class. I realized I was late. And since I missed the quiz that was our participation points, I decided I'd just skip class anyway, which again, don't do as I did. Be better than me. Be better than that. Anyway. And I worked on my paper, I got it done, and I told all the other members of Good News Club about it, and they laughed. It was a good reminder that if it's good enough for little kids, it's probably good enough for us too. And so, and that's kind of what I want to remind ourselves. When Paul is writing this letter, he's in prison. The Philippians are freaking out. They're like, oh my gosh, Paul's in prison. What should we do? And Paul says, hey, don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. In fact, rejoice in the Lord always. Again, I say rejoice. He goes on to say this in verse 6. He says, don't worry about anything. Wow, that's easy to say. Thanks for that, Paul. But don't worry about anything. Instead, pray about everything. Ask God for what you need and thank Him for what He's given you. And I think that's something that's really important to realize in our lives, because so often we just get so caught up in everything that's going on and the problems and the bad things, the running late to class, not getting our paper done because we decided to go to bed instead of stay up late and work on our paper, or not getting our paper done because we decided not to start on it early enough and that we didn't get it done in time and we had to stay up late in order to work on it. Or whatever those things may be. And Paul says, don't worry about anything, but instead pray. Pray about everything. If you pray about it, you don't have to worry about it. He goes, you can ask God for what you need, but most importantly, give thanks to God for what He has given us, because that shifts our mind off the thing that we're worrying about and puts it on the things that we already have, the things that we can be thankful and grateful for. He says this, and he concludes it by saying this in verse 7. And the peace of God, which transcends all understanding, will guard your hearts and your minds in Christ. I've always loved that. The peace of God that transcends, that goes beyond our understanding. The peace of God which we can't understand. We'll never be able to understand. It is so overwhelming and so consuming. Jesus talks about this peace. In John chapter 14, he says, peace I leave with you, but the peace I offer is not like the world gives. It doesn't fade away. It's not invested in things that aren't consistent, that can't protect you. No, the peace I give is founded in God. It's founded in the one constant thing in life. So do not be troubled or afraid. And that's the same thing Paul's saying here. He's like, when we do this, when we take our mind off our worry and put it on thanksgiving and prayer, then the peace of God, which is beyond what we can understand, which is beyond what anything we have here and what we can imagine, will be with us, and God will cover our hearts, and He will surround our hearts, and He will give us that peace in our life. That's pretty awesome stuff. And so if you're thinking, man, I'm just so stressed out, I'm so anxious, I'm just so concerned, stop. Don't worry about anything. Instead, pray about everything. Ask God for what you need and give thanks to God for what He's given you. So there you go. There's your Thanksgiving gym for the day. And there's your challenge, is if you are feeling stressed out or anxious or worried or whatever, sing that silly little song. Think back on that verse and say, rejoice in the Lord always. Not sometimes, not part of the time, not only when things are going great. Rejoice in the Lord always, in the good times and in the horrible, bad, sticky, smelly, awful times. Again, I say, rejoice. So remember to pray for your prayer pal. We'll use the same prayer pal from this past week. And also, if you have any prayer requests, since we're not meeting this Wednesday, send them out in the group text. We'd love to pray for them and love to keep those things in our minds. So have an awesome and wonderful Thanksgiving. Enjoy some delicious turkey and whatever else your family goes and gets and fixes and all that good stuff. And I will see you all next Wednesday at Dan and Cindy's. All right, have a great and wonderful holiday weekend.